Okay, we are beginning Masechtas Yoma. So a few words of introduction. Number one, our Chabura originally started with a commitment for Avrei Psachim, and that's what we did. Okay, Baruch Hashem. I happen to have gotten a very big geschmack out of learning it. I enjoyed the Amid, I enjoyed the Limud, I enjoyed the Chevra. So I'm like, all right, let's try Yuma. And I appreciate everybody who's joining us. I will have to say for myself, I will be utilizing. This is going to be, what do they call it now? A hybrid. This is a hybrid shear. So we'll have many of them in person, and there will be some that will not be in person. And I'll just post it because either like I can know already, like Weimer already we have Chasana. And then the whole summer, I'm going to be in Eretz Hashem and Eretz Yisrael. So Mati will be there, but I don't know if anybody else will be there. So I'm saying it, L'chatchil, it's a hybrid shir. So in Eretz Hashem, every shir will be posted. If we can make it here together, fantastic. If not, I will post it before the shir time so we can listen to it. You'll be able to listen to it. So that's L'chatchil. So I understand that we're going into it L'chatchil like that. Yuma is, I just, it's Geshmak, as Yechiel mentioned. We're mamish. We're getting ready. It's mostly that, but the only halachic part of this whole masechta is the last parak. Parak Shmini is the which I think we'll be learning maybe like around Yom Kippur time. This will take us from today, April 30th, April 29th, through October, I think. So we will be learning at the Yom time, Yom Kippur time. We'll be learning the more halachic part, but now we're going to be learning the avodah of the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur. I bought a book I'm going to bring in. It's like this thick of pictures. It's a picture book. Amazing graphics. I'm glad. I just looked at the pictures. I got the chills. I was like, wow, it's like exciting. So Eretz Hashem is going to be. It's going to be great. So thanks for joining, and here we go. Shivas Yomim Kodim Yom Kippurim. 7 days before Yom Kippur, Mafrishin Kohen Gadol mi Beisai. They would separate the Kohen Gadol from his home, Lalishkas Parhedrin, to this office called Parhedrin that was in Harbais, in the Beis Hamikdash. Exactly where it is, we'll discuss in a moment. So that's the first halacha. There's a halacha of prisha. The Kohen Gadol needs to be out of his house, and presumably he was away from his wife too. Possibly. I'm trying to remember what I wrote here. There's a prisha was not just that he had to go away, but he had to go into the office to get ready. But he actually, where can I find this? I wrote this somewhere. If he had to go by himself, or he was, I think it was Mibese. I think it was from his wife as well. I can't find it, but I think so. Umitaknina, what Rashi says that there? Who says that? No. Where he is? Okay. Now, so they were mafreshim. We'll learn where the source for this is. Why were they mafreshim? Why did he have to separate 7 days? Let's see at the bottom of the page. And they prepared another kohen tachtav in his place, Shema Yera Beit Psul, in case he became puzzled to do the avodah. So they had another kohen ready to take over. That's probably the guy who's known as the Skan Kohen Gadol. He was ready to take over. If they didn't have one yet, then they would appoint it before Yom Kippur. But it was someone who he was appointed. And then Rabbi Yehuda says, "Afisha acheres mitaknin alay." You'd prepare him another wife as well. Shematamas lest she die. Shematamas isha, just in case his wife dies. He needs to be married to do the avodah. So we want to make sure he has a wife. And when it says Ba'ad Beisay for his household, Beisay Zuisha, this is referring to his wife. And on that, the Chacham argued, Amrullah, we hold you got to give it, you got to make sure there's another kohen, but you don't have to make sure that his wife, Shema Thomas, maybe she's going to die. That I don't have to be concerned for. Amrulai in Cain, if that's the case, in ever say, if you're going to start making these these concerns that maybe his wife's going to die, then he'll never say, maybe you should put up another way. Maybe she'll die and you'll need another woman. The Gemara will say, why don't you have the same Taina on you? Why are you appointing another Kohen? What about a replacement for that Kohen? Okay, so we got a few halachas in the mission. Number one, you got to be. What's more?
What's more important?
Okay, no, but they're both ma'aj k'shayla because it's a machlekes here.
Why is he when it comes to the wife? What about with the
okay, and that's the Gemara's excellent kasha. Good kasha. Good kasha. They're both. You need a Kohen Gadol and you need a Kohen Gadol. You know, a Kohen though that you can find any Kohen really. Anybody can step up. A wife, go find another wife. But we'll go into that. But I wanted so now we have a halacha prisha. You got to separate for 7 days. Number one, there's a prisha's Kohen Gadol for 7 days. A mitaknin, you had to make sure you had a skan, and a machlekes if you had to be mitakin, you had to prepare for him another wife just in case his wife dies. 3 halachas in the Mishnah. Now, let me just discuss before we get into the Gemara a few nakudas here. First of all. So when we said that he had to go into this lishka, was he allowed to leave? Did he have to stay there for all 7 days? Was he like stuck there? So it's interesting. In the Achrayim we find, do we compare this to like sukkah, where you have to leave your home, right? You have to be yoytze mi beisai, and you got to move into your sukkah, but there you're also allowed to leave. Right? Is it like that? Or the source for this is from the Miluim, which we'll see at the bottom of the page. And there it seemed like the Kohanim, when they were Aaron and his sons, when they were getting ready for their service in the Beis HaMikdash, they couldn't leave. So he was not allowed to leave this room for all 7 days. Okay. Now, where was this Lishka? Now, it was definitely on Har HaBayis. The question is, was it actually part of the Azara? Was it Kodesh? Or was it just on Har HaBayis? What's the nafkamina? The pashtus is, the halacha is, you're not allowed to sit in the Azara. Ein yeshiva ba'azara ella l'malchus beis David bavad. Only the king was allowed to sit in the Azara. Kahanim were not allowed to sit in the Azara. He couldn't sleep. If he was there all day, he couldn't leave. So if it was in the Azara, then like how do you sit down? So it must be it wasn't in the Azara. That's what I think. Rashi's opinion, we'll see later on, was that it was not in the Azara, but it was on Har HaBayis. There's another opinion that it was in the Azara, and the only time that there's an Isser to sit in the Azara is if it's shaykh not to sit. But if the Torah says you have to be in this room for 7 days, I mean, Torah is assuming you're going to be sitting, and therefore it's shaykh that it was in the Azara. Okay, point number 2. Now, did the skan who we were separating, right? We were talking him an assistant. Does he also need to be parish for 7 days? Meaning, is the prisha ma'akev b'diavad? If the kohen didn't do this halacha of prisha, was he able to do the avodah?
Well, what's the reason for the prisha?
We'll see in the bottom of the page. It's a good shot if there's a reason for it, or if it's a drasha. But if it's a din
reason, then the sub should also.
Correct. It's a shayla really if it's ma'akiv. What happens if the Kohen Gadol didn't do the prisha? Whatever happened, I don't know, you got a cold. Let's say you had to leave. If you have to be there the whole time and you had to leave.
If it's ma'akiv, then the sub has to do it.
Yeah, if it's ma'akiv, then he would have to do it. What was that? Yeah, you definitely had to remain tar. The question is if you didn't do it as a ma'akiv, meaning are you still able to do the avodah on Yom Kippur? If it is ma'akiv, so then the skan would have to do it as well. Good, excellent. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Now, let's just take a look at the second thesis here. Thesis has an interesting ha'ara. The Chacham's time is that if you're going to separate one woman, so this guy has another wife, then we should separate another. If you're chayish, the time is if you're chayish l'misa, if we're concerned for death, so then if you're concerned that his wife will die, then you got to be concerned that the next one will also die. So Taisa says a problem because we have a Mishnah in Yevamis where it's clear that the Tana is the Mishnah is choshesh for one misa, but not for a second. So Zak Taisus, Ikol Mechash Lamisa, the Chada Mechash. I'm sorry. The Ikol Mechash Lamisa, the time of the Chum is that this ain't will ever say the Ikol Mechash Lamisa. If you're going to be concerned for death, the Chada of one Nechash Afilu Lamisa, the Tarti V'Tlas, and be concerned for the second and the third too. That's the time. Frek Taisvis, yeah, I forgot the Perek Dalarachin Mashma Listam Masis and Dasam, the Lamisa Dachar Chashinon. The Trei Chashinan, the Mishnah there is clear that we're only chayish, we're only concerned for one and not for the death of two. There, the scenario of Istam Masis and the Hachan, our Mishnah here, Sriledi Chashin Lamisa Lechada, Nechashnam Milatula. So Taisa is asking a stira in Mishnais, in Stam Mishnais. Our Mishnah here says that if you're chayish for one, then be chayish for more. And the Mishnah there holds if you're chayish, you can be chayish for one, but we're not chayish for more than one. Oh, so what's the Mishnah talking about? The Mishnah there is discussing a case where two brothers are married to two sisters. Okay? And one of them, and they die, the brothers die. So they're neifel yibum to the other two brothers. There were four brothers altogether. That's how the parak starts. Okay, they fall to you. So the Gemara wants to know. The Gemara there is discussing whether there's Zika. The point being is that the Gemara wants to why do we have to talk about four brothers? Why can't we just talk about three brothers? Right? Because what would happen if you'd have three brothers? If two brothers die, so they both. If one brother dies, let's say one brother died, so he's neifel to yibum to brother number. You have 1, 2, and 3. So let's say brother 1 dies. So he can't go to 2 because 2 is married to that one sister. So that woman is neifel goes to the third brother. Okay, so he can marry her. The problem though is that he marries her. So now what happens if the second brother dies? He's not going to be able to do yibum to the third one, to the second one's wife, because now he's married to her sister. So the Gemara doesn't want to have such a scenario. So the Gemara has a case of 4. Okay, that's what the Gemara is discussing. So there the Gemara says that we're nechash l'chada. So the Gemara says, yes, now that we're talking about 4 brothers, so why are you concerned that one's going to die? Why aren't you concerned that the next one's going to die as well? So then it says, we're chayish for 1, we're not chayish for 2. Okay, that's the Gemara there. So practices, but our Tana here is only chayish. It's not chayish for, if you're chayish for 1, you should be chayish for everybody. There the Tana holds you can be chayish for 1 and not be chayish for 2. That's the Gemara. So practices is here. Taisus gives 2 terut into this kasha. Number 1, yesh leimer, the hachi kamar hachi. He the chashin lamisa dechad. Avada we agree that you would be chayish lamisa dechad lizman meruba. In that case, says everybody's going to die. The woman eventually is going to die. It's just a question of, is the husband going to die first or the woman going to die first? That's called lizman meruba. Everybody's going to die. So of course we have to be concerned for such a scenario because people die. That dilma ad miyabim chad, if you're going to be miyabim one wife, then eventually ma'isi the other one's going to die. But for such a short time that we're going to be concerned that she's going to die that day for a zman muat, that I'm not chayish. And if you are going to be chayish for that, imkain nechash afilu tarti v'tlas. So that's the time over here. That of course we agree you can be chayish for misa. Eventually someone's going to die, but you want to be concerned that they're going to die on that day. That's a very far chashash. And if you can be chayish for that, then you should be chayish for more than one person dying too. That's the first answer. Inami, alternatively, hasam chashasha ba'almuhu. Misham bittul mitzvah. Over there, this concern that we have is it's not the biggest problem. Lucky surah kulehai. If it ends up happening, it's not that big of a deal. Aval hacham mishum de kaparas kol yisrael teluya b'zeh. But over here, why are you being chayish here? Because you're saying this is a very big issue. Because the kapara of all Klal Yisrael is dependent if this guy's married to this woman. And therefore you're concerned that maybe she's going to die. Well, if you're concerned because it's such a big problem, So then you should be very concerned. I'm sorry. Nechesh afilu tarti v'tlasa afilu zman muat. V'imkein ein lo davar saif. Hilkach lachem evet tekanta lahei chashasha. He says, if you're going to be chayish, if the reason for your chashash is because here, I mean, the reason why you're being chayish here for a zman muat is because it's such a big deal. So once you're being chayish for a zman muat, you should be chayish for 2 and 3 as well. And therefore, since I'm not going to do that, I'm not going to be chayish for this at all. Okay, there's 2 answers to the stira.
Over there, it's not such a big deal.
Yeah, the Gemara, it's a bittul mitzvahs yavmin. You're not going to be able to do the yibum to this woman because she's zakuk to you because you're already married to her sister. So they have so okay, so you're going to have to do chalitza. Okay, or she's not going to do anything at all. Okay, it's not you're not doing any isurim. You know, you can't be makan the mitzvah. Whatever, it's not the biggest issue. But here, your concern here is for the kapara of Klal Yisrael. Then you should be very concerned. And if you are very concerned, then you got to take it all the way. Why are you taking it all the way? That's the kasha. Gival. Okay, let's start the Mishnah. Now, the Gemara now is going to bring in a Mishnah from Para that talks about the halacha that the kohen who is going to be involved in making the para aduma has to also be parish for 7 days. Okay, so the next most of the Amid is going to discuss that, and then we're going to want to know where's the source for both of these halachas. Okay, so the similarity here is that there's a halacha of prisha on the kohen for 7 days in Yoma and for Yom Kippur and for the Sreifas para, and that's what we're going to discuss now, and then we're going to get back to the source in the bottom. Zok the Elga Mishnah. Zok Gemara. Tonight, we won't do the Mishnah. 7 days before the burning of the para, they would separate the kohen who was going to burn the para from its home, lelishka, to an office, sha'al pinei habira, that was on the bira. The Gemara will discuss what that is. Tsefaina mizracha, on the northeastern part of the Azara. Ulishka's Beis HaEvan Haisa Nikras, and this office was called the Beis HaEvan, the House of Stone. Okay, V'lama Nikras Shema Lishka's Beis HaEvan. Why was it called the office of the House of Stone? Why was it referred to as that? Shekol Ma'aseh B'Kli Galalim V'Klei Avanim V'Klei Adama. Because all of the Ma'aseh, all of the actions done with this kohen were done with kalim that could not be makabel tumah. Klei galalim. Here it seems to say it means it was kalim made out of galali behema. Klei avanim were stone kalim. Klei adama or things made out of earthenware, but they were not put into a kiln. They didn't turn into pottery. So they were, shvacha kalim. These kalim are not makabel tumah. So let me just get what we got over here. So we have a halacha that for 7 days before the Sreifas Apara, you took the kohen who was going to be doing that, and you had to be mafresh him, you had to separate him for 7 days. The office they put him in was called the Lishka's Beis HaEvan, because everything he did with this kohen was with Evan, where it was with kalim that were not makabel tumah. Now, what's the deal with that? Why did you have to use these lousy kalim? I just want to give you the reason is like this. There's a big machlokes between the Tzdukim and the Prushim when it came to making a para aduma. Okay, the Prushim, that's the From Chevra. They held, the Orthodox Jews at the time held that the para aduma was allowed to be, the kohen who was involved in making the para aduma was allowed to be a tful yaim. What's a tful yaim? Tful yaim is somebody who was tamei that went to the mikveh that day. The halacha is a guy who went to the mikveh that day, so there's certain things he can't do until it gets tzeis like a chavim. So from the first Mishnah Brachas, a kohen who is a tful yaim can't eat truma ad tzeis like a chavim until then he's allowed to eat truma. So he's called a tful yaim. So anyone who went to the mikveh, the day you go to the mikveh, you're called a tful yaim. So if you were tamei and you went to the mikveh, you're called a tful yaim. The Torah says you're allowed to be involved in the part of Duma, even though you're a Tful Yaim. The Tzdukim held, the Karaites, the Tzdukim, Tersha B'chsavniks, they said no, you had to wait, and a guy who was a Tful Yaim would not be allowed to be Isaac in the part of Duma. So what do we do? night, we would dafka make the kohen tamei. That day, he was going to go burn it. We made him tamei, and then we took him to the mikvah. He went to the mikvah, and then he went and burnt the parah, just to show them that you're wrong, we're right. That was like, stick it to them. Now, but because of that, well, one second. Because of that, because we specifically did the paraduma with a guy who's a Tful Yom. So people will say, hey, a Tful Yom could do the paraduma. I guess it's not such a serious thing. And we were concerned that because we were doing this, people would be mezalzel. They wouldn't take the paradumas, a tahara, so seriously. And therefore we went wacko in the chumras. Everything else was super chumra. Right, to the extent that they wouldn't even use a kli that could be makabel tuma in being matar this kain. Right, and there are a lot of chumras involved in the paraduma because we were makel in this Indian. Okay, so that's the Gemara. Why do we do this? My timer. Why did we only use kalim that could not become makabel tuma in the process of being matar the kohen? Kim the Tful Yom kosher b'para, because a Tful Yom is kosher to be oisik in the paraduma. It's not like going to the Mishnah. Tam in hayu hakohen aser v'zapara. We would be metamet the kohen who went to burn the paraduma. Umatbil and Isai, and we tabled them that day, and we did this lahitzim elivin shal tzedukim to as opposed to what the tzedukim held. They said, you can only do the paraduma when the sun already set on the guy. So because we were mako, tekina le rabbanon, the rabbanon were misakin klei galom, klei abanon, klei adama, the leila kabel tuma, they were misakin to use these kalim which cannot become tamei, so people should not be mezalzel in the paraduma. Okay, that's that. Now I got to tell you something. To me, it's a very interesting thesis. Okay, Tesis in Lahaitzim Leaving Shal Tzedukim. He says something to me which is very fascinating. And the way I describe this, what do? We take a kohen who's tahar, we sprinkled him with the paradum ash for the past 7 days. We've been making sure this guy's tahar, and then what do we do with him? We're matamim. So how you matamim? So I would assume if we want to be Mahaitzil Melivin Shal Tzedukim, you'd make him Tamei Mid'Oraisa, that they agree that he's Tamei, and then we'd be table him. So now he's a Tful Yom Mid'Oraisa. Right? That they agree that he's a Tful Yom, and then we go do that Avodah. Teza says no, it's Tzedukim, yeah, because we want to do Mahaitzil Melivin. So that's what you would do. You make him Tamei Mid'Oraisa. They agree he's Tamei, and then we put him into the mikvah. They agree he's a Tful Yom, and then we're going to go do the B'Shev Parah with this guy. Then they'll be like, he's not. Taisa says, no, we don't do that. Love the Tumah D'Oraisa Metamulei. We're not going to be Metamim with the Tumah D'Oraisa. What are you, crazy? Delay having Mizalzabul Kul. We're not going to be Mizalzal in this Avodah to the extent to be Metamim with the Tumah D'Oraisa. That we can't do. Adraba, I'm reading Perek Darshan. He said, we're very machmir. We're going to come for this. So that can't be. So you know what he does say? We're not going to read it, but he says, you know what we do? The halacha is that if anybody, even a kohen who's tar, who's eating kachim, were to touch somebody who's going to be Isaac in the paraduma, he became tamei, and he had to be toivel. So what we did was, the kahanim would go and put their hands on this kohen. They gave him smicha. They give him a big hug. So now he was tamei midrabbanan, and then he would go and be toivel, and this was the Tful Yom that he went to be served to parah.
So you can still say that he's not tamei?
Yeah, that's the taina on Taisus. The taina on Taisus says it's counterintuitive. The answer they say is yeah, but they see that at least according to us he was tamei. According to us he's a Tful Yom, and we're still using him. So, they're not that. I mean, if I was a Tzuya, I would be that upset. I mean, he's still tar according to it. It was never an issue. So to me, like, you don't really get it to the Tzedukim. You're not giving it to them unless you're metamim mid'oraisa. He says they're only metamim mid'rabbanan. Okay. Now let's talk about this office. No, yeah, why was this office in the Tzvayna Mizracha? Why was it in the northeastern part of the Azara? It says the Markiv the Chatasi. Because the paradum is called the chatas, tzu'una tzafan, and the chatas needs to be brought in the tzafan of the mizbeach. Uksiva el noichach b'nei oil mayed, and it says that he's supposed to be el noichach b'nei oil mayed, meaning when the the kapara duma was not shechted in the Beis Hamikdash. It was shechted in Haraba in Har Hazesu. If you ever been on one of those tours of Ir David, you've been to Ir David tour. So there, your mom's right across from Har Hazesu. So my tour guide always points. I've done it a few times. He points out. He says they think like you could see like there's a little area there where they assume that's where they did the paraduma. Because from that spot you could see right in to the Beis Hamikdash, right to the Kodesh Kodashim, and it's El Noichach Pnei Oyel Mayid, right opposite the Oyel Mayid. So that's what they figure they could see. You obviously see the spot where they assume that's where they brought the paraduma. So, but that was in the east. So we want to get both. You want to be in the north because that's where the Chatas needs to be brought, and you want to be in the east because that is where he ends up going to be makar of this. So Tekino Le Rabbanan Lishka Tzavena Mazor, so they gave him an office with a northeastern view. So he'll be very cognizant of this fact that it's got to be shechted, that it's a chatos, and that it's got to be done in the Mizrach. Great. Says the Gemara, my bira. What's this lashon that they call this thing a lishka shal pnei habira? Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Mokem Hoye Bahar Habayis. There was a place on Har Bayis, Ubira Shmai. There was a place on Har Bayis called Bira. Okay. Rish Lakish Amar, Kol HaMikdash Kulei Kari Bira. The whole Beis HaMikdash is called Bira. Shenemar Habira Asher Achinoisi. The whole Beis HaMikdash is called the Bira. Machlekes, Rish Lakish, and Rabbi Yochanan. Okay. Says, let me stop one more thesis here. Thesis wants to know, why do we need two offices? Why couldn't we put the Kohen Gadol before Yom Kippur in the same office that we put the guy for the Paraduma? I mean, how often did they bring this Paraduma? You know what I mean? There were only 9 made in history. The 10th one is going to be lovely. 9 Paradumas. They had a special office for this guy. You know what I mean? And there was another office that they used, once a year for the Kohen Gadol? They at least consolidate a little bit. Correct thesis, and the second to last thesis. Why couldn't they put him into this office? Yeshloimah thesis answers. The Lishkas Para, Hayukarim La, Lishkas Beisa Evan. Kihechi didn't have a kera. We gave it a special name, so there should be a heker. Shekol Maaseh B'Klei Avonim. V'Yehavu Mavrish Inami Lahu Lishka Kohen Gadol L'Vei Yom Kippur Oz Le'Hav Le'Heker L'Para. Fascinating. I mean, this is crazy to me. If we're going to use this also for the Kohen Gadol, then when they bring a Kohen there for the Paraduma purposes, it's going to lose its hecker. It's not going to be so special, so unique. That again, we were very marked when it came to Paraduma, and that this office is going to lose its uniqueness, and it won't have the same effect on the kohen if it's used for something else. So there was an office that was, I don't know how many times in history it was used. They only made 9 Paradumas through 2 Batei Mikdash. And one Moshe did without the Beis Hamikdash. So this thing was used 8 times in history. Wow.
If you only have to use Kohen Evan for the Kohen Paraduma, the other Kohen,
the Kohen Gadol didn't
have to.
Correct.
So why would we want to, for that reason alone, why would we want to give him a room with
I hear you. Okay, you give her a nicer room. This is one teretz. Listen to the second teretz, which is interesting enough community. Inam Yeshleimah. Mishum the Kohen Gadol b'Yom Kippur and Prishasa l'Kedusha. The Kohen Gadol of Yom Kippur, his prisha was for Kedusha. Shekolav v'dasei l'fnim v'l'fnei. I mean, his whole avodah was in the Beis Hamikdash and in the Kodesh Kodashim. So you have Frishan Oisei l'Lishkas Parhedrin shebenuya b'Kodesh. Taisus's opinion sounds like that his office was in the Kodesh. It was in the Azara, like I mentioned before. But the par which avodah is outside the Beis Hamikdash, Bahar Mishcha on Har Hazeisim, Prishasei l'Lishka Shalpanei Abira Shechutz l'Azara. It was his office was not in the Azara; it was outside the Azara. So the office, it gave you it had an effect on what you were going ready to do, preparing you for what you were doing. If your avodah was b'kodesh, your office needed to be b'kodesh. If your avodah was b'chutz, then your office was b'chutz. Shema Keteres. So this you will see later on when Taisus seems to be saying to himself. But here he sounds like it was mamish but kodesh. It was in the Azara. Okay. So the Gemara right here. All right, now we begin. Where do we get this idea that both Yom Kippur, the Kohen Gadol, needs Prisha for 7 days, and the Kohen that's being saved, the Parah, needs Prisha for 7 days? Says the Gemara, the pasuk says, now this is a pasuk by the Miluim. Okay, for 7 days, the Kahan, Aaron and his sons were getting ready to serve in the Beis Hamikdash, and they served every day, and they had to work in the Beis Hamikdash, and they had to stay in the Beis Hamikdash. And the pasuk says, "Kasher asa bayem hazeh," like you did the first day. Tziva Hashem lasis l'chaper aleichem. Hashem commands you to do to achieve forgiveness. The pshat of the pasuk is that whatever you did today on day one of the Milum, you got to do for the next 6 days. All 7 days need to be done the same. That's a pshat. The Gemara dash in something else. Kasher asa bayem hazeh, just like you did today. So, Tziva Hashem lasis, Hashem commands you to do. Refers to, says the Gemara lasis. Whatever you did today means that the Prisha that you did today, and you're going to do for the next 7 days, you're going to have to do for the Parah Aduma, L'chaper, Elu Masi Yom Kippurim. That's referring to the what you can do for Yom Kippur. So we have a drasha from here that the Kohen Gadol before Yom Kippur and the Parah, the Kohen that saved the Parah, needs to be Pirish 7 days, just like the Milah. In fact, the Gemara Bishlam I understand why the whole pasuk can't be talking about the paraduma, because l'chaper. If it says l'chaper, upara la bas kapari, the para wasn't for kapara; it was for tahara. So maybe the whole pasuk is just coming to teach you about Yom Kippur, and you don't need to be parish for the para. Amri, the Gemara says, "Yalla tziva tziva." I have a gzeira shava. Tziva tziva. Ksiva, it says here, Tziva Hashem Lasi. So by the Milum it says Tziva. Ksiva Hasam, and it says by the Paraduma, Zeischukas Aderasher, Tziva Hashem. Lema, Malahalan Para, just like over there, the Tziva is referring to the Para, Afkan Para. Here too, it's referring to the Para. Umakan Prisha, and just like over here by the Milum, you need Prisha. Aflahalan, Prisha, also over there, you're going to need Prisha. Okay, so the Gemara then will discuss what about Yom Kippur. Okay, Gavalik. So we learned here today about the Shevas Para, the current that saves the Para needs Prisha. Granted, there's a machlokes. If only the guy who burns it needs it, or anybody who's involved in the avodah of the Kohen Gadol needs of the Paraduma needs Prisha. The Lashon of Brayis says HaKohen HaSeirves HaPara. Is that just to be malamed if you're doing an Ikra avodah like Shchita and Zrika? You need it to be parish or dafka the seirif. So we learned about that. We learned why it was Klei Glalim, what the L'Haitim Milubin Shel Tzedukim was, and the drasha from Miluim. All right, we did it. Days of Aleph done. Shkayach, we'll see you on Hashem tomorrow night. All right, good. It's nice to be back. You were at the last year I gave. You were there at my house last year?
That whole stretch.
Oh my God, that's crazy. Baruch Hashem. You were there too, right? At the emergency room. I think it was a perfect break.
That's right. You didn't come back. I was severe back.